There was something that we touched on yesterday, Joe, for just a moment, and I wanted to get some actual clarification on who asked this question. But there's a back and forth between Houston Texans owner Cal McNair, his wife Hannah McNair, and Will Kunkel of Fox 26 when it came to Tank Dell's status going forward. If you missed it, here it is again.
When you when you do talk to him, what do you say to him? How do you convey your love for him as well as concern? And you want him to learn.
That's kind of between us and Tank, just what we talked about with him. That's a hard situation to be in, so those are kind of private conversations.
What do you want him to learn in a situation like that?
Again, I think that's stuff we just talk about privately, and in any situation in life, you're going to learn something.
So the more I've thought about this, I thought it was interesting that, because you think that it should get it should be getting a little more attention.
I'm surprised that no one has publicly pushed back on Will's question.
I think it's Hannah's response.
Hannah's response does it, but I think that, and look, I don't know Will personally. I've talked to him a couple of times though, and hey, got no issue with him. But the first question that was asked there's an implication that Tank Dell needs to learn a lesson.
Yeah, that he put himself in the situation.
Especially considering he followed up asking the same question twice.
Yeah, that I thought was weird.
I thought it was a bad look. I look, these private conversations that ownership has with an employee, is everybody entitled to know what that conversation was? And also, in asking a question like that, you are implying that Tank Dell was at fault for being in that spot. You just are. Even if you're doing it unintentionally, you are implying that. And the way that I heard that question in the moment yesterday, not even expecting it to, was Will Kunkel was basically asking the Texans if they were grounding Tank Dell.
Yeah, it definitely has a negative connotation to it. Like, to what you said, if he intended to ask it that way or not is hard to tell. I think the follow-up makes it a little more clear that he was expecting to get it. He wanted an answer that he didn't get. And that's why he followed up with the exact same question. But I think because Hannah, more like the way she handled it, just really shutting it down, is why it hasn't gotten more attention.
She did a great job of handling that. She did not get mad. She just said, that's between us.
It's a bigger story if she gives a different reaction.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's one where people would start circling the Texans ownership group as they have in the past and said, like, here they are saying problematic things again. Yeah. That's one of those loaded questions. And look, people that are in our shoes from time to time, they have to ask questions like that. But I don't think that was a question that had to be asked unless you know something about that situation that proves that Dell perhaps needs to have a sit down with Texans ownership or somebody else to keep himself out of those situations. But if you don't have that, and if you're not coming to the table with that on your next television broadcast or something like that, I don't think you should ask it. And I do think that for some, you hear that question asked, and you probably have a gut feeling as to why that question was asked. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. Again, I don't know Will. I truly don't. I don't know what's going on in his head when he's asking it. I do know, though, he was looking for an answer that was different than the one that he got right there.
Yeah, I am surprised that this doesn't have more traction to it, specifically because, like, we've seen the way that media members in this city react to things like this, specifically like the ones that cover the Rockets. Like, I think you look at what happened with the Alperen Şengün thing that happened, like, with us, like, the way people were, like, what they wanted out of it, the way that people would ask questions of Deshaun Watson in the past, that, like, typically you would see media members make a big deal about questions like this. So I'm a little surprised that there's not more implication to this. We'll continue this on the other side. All right, we're discussing some of this Tank Dell question that he was asked from yesterday. Koog Blaze says here on the Twitch that question was more offensive than the Caitlin Clark guy.
Yeah, he was just creepy.
Yeah, he was just a creep ass. Like,
because to what we were saying in the commercial break, it does feel like
it's a loaded question.
They're asking if he's going to get punished for being shot.
Yeah.
And the idea that you're supposed to know whenever you're out and about that bleep can go down. Mm-hmm. To me, it's the same kind of weird pushback that we got from people who were out and about during COVID. You know, just from the other, I guess, side of the aisle. It's like, oh, if you go out and about, you might be spreading this. You should know better. Listen, if you're out and about, this could happen to you. You should know better. And okay, are we all just going to lock ourselves inside forever because America is a dangerous place to breathe in or to go to a bar in? I mean, come on.
Yeah, my issue with the question is that like, there is nothing to the story that we've ever been told or that's been shared that indicates anything about Tank Dell having any knowledge of the people around him. Like, he was just unfortunate there. It to me is the exact same as what happened the year before with Brian Robinson, the running back for the Washington Commanders. Brian Robinson got carjacked and he got shot. Like, he did nothing wrong. He got carjacked. Tank Dell was at a bar in which a 16-year-old brought a gun in and thought his best situation was to spray and pray and hopefully hit the people that he wanted to hit.
Somehow he hit nobody in a life-threatening / murderous way.
Like, there is nothing about this Tank Dell situation to me where, like, that's why I don't think the question is warranted.
I don't either. And I think sometimes reporters have to take a step back and realize that there are certain conversations that are private that are never going to be shared. Is this me saying, what's the point of asking that question? To a degree, yeah.
Well, because there's certain players there are certain players, people that you would ask this question about, and I would say, valid question. You put on here on the doc, Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
Valid.
Rashee Rice.
Yeah, he has some things he can learn from.
Ja Morant. Valid.
And it seemed like those two haven't learned from it with everything that's happened with Ja or with Rashee Rice. I mean, the most recent story with Rashee Rice is that he was supposedly at a Dallas club. Camera person got in his face and he shoved him. And I believe that now there's an investigation into whether or not he assaulted said photographer. Yeah. These are guys where there are multiple incidents. With Tank Dell, unless there's something that none of us are aware of, and it sucks that we even have to say that because that puts in the idea of some people, well, maybe there was something. This is where that question kind of leads down the rabbit hole of, does this person have some sort of inside knowledge about what Tank Dell does? Mm-hmm. I doubt it, to be honest.
Exactly. The Rashee Rice and Ja Morant, since those are the two that we brought up, I'll just stick with those. Those two have multiple incidents where they are not the victim. Tank Dell has one incident in which he is the victim. Again, unless there's elements to this story that what happened in the at the what was it, Cabana Live
in Sanford, Florida.
Yeah, in Orlando. Like, unless there's elements to the story that we the public don't know, or just the three of us don't know, that it implicates Tank Dell as like part of this part of the escalation that led to 10 people getting shot. We don't know that. We have no idea what happened. We know that Rashee Rice drove his car off the road. Like, we know that happened. We know what Ja Morant was on Instagram Live doing the stuff he was doing. Like, it is such a wild question to ask of someone who got shot.
Right. I mean, this is a question that you would ask Texans ownership about with, I don't know. Maybe somebody who was allegedly doing inappropriate things with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. At least 24 different massage therapists. Yeah. Then maybe ask Texans ownership, hey, have you had a conversation with Deshaun Watson? Or do you think he's learned his lesson?
Or maybe a certain running back on the Texans?
Joe Mixon?
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's the more I think about it, the more I'm confused by it. I just don't really understand.
There is a place for that question, but I think Will Kunkel knew what he was doing there. And maybe if we were to have a conversation either privately or publicly here, he'd be able to explain it. But it's one of those things where you are looking at the athlete as not necessarily subhuman, but as somebody who is dumb.
Yeah.
Oh man, this guy got shot. He needs to learn his lesson.
Or
Well,
that
it's
he's a kid or something.
Yeah,
like that.
He's an adult man.
Yeah, it's like
he's a young adult, and we all learn things in our young adulthood. But he's not a child.
at a certain point, like bleep happens, and this is like an unfortunate bleep happens. Like you mentioned, Brian Robinson getting carjacked. Like
Yeah,
I don't what. Or are you gonna say like, well, don't have that nice of a car because then people won't try to jack you. Like
That's what I feel, honestly.
like we're doing the like elements of provocation argument and stuff with like when people are victims of crimes and you're like, well, what was Tank Dell wearing?
Yeah.
like
Yes.
that's what we're doing.
It's victim blaming. Like that's 100% what the question is. Whether it's a direct blame or it's an insinuation of it, it is victim blaming, victim questioning that his actions are the reason why he got shot, and his actions that day were going to a bar.
He went to a party while he was in town visiting his family. Is he supposed to give up on all of his friends because X, Y, Z reasons that we don't know about? It's bizarre. And as someone who has done a little extra research on this website on this bar, Cabana Live, for a live stream, this is one of those places that is supposedly a family-friendly sports bar.
Yeah.
There are pictures on the website of kids in the pool.
I was just looking at those yesterday after we had this conversation.
It
makes me laugh.
I mean, this idea that, and I'm sure that this is, again, part of the implication with that question. This idea that this is some place like straight out of Roadhouse, where everyone's strapped up. The live music has a cage around it so that the musicians don't have bottles thrown at their head. That was not this place. I've seen some reviews recently that say like they haven't really figured out what they are. Sometimes the bar gets overcrowded. Some days it's more of a family day. Other days it's more of just like, your routine bar with a pool. And sometimes there are people, I guess, that are coming in who are a little hammed after riding on the lake, because I guess it's like right by the water. But based off of what I looked up about that place, maybe that night was the exception, but that place is generally not what everyone, I guess, believes that it might have been.
Yeah.
Due to questions that have implications like that one from Will Kunkel.
Yeah, it's I'm curious, especially because like the reality is it's just you hope the player is just healthy, like that's all that really matters. I don't know why there needs to be more questions about what happened that night, because there's no information that provides even to me a need to ask that question.
Are you gonna put soap in his mouth for being at a bar and getting shot?
Yeah, I mean,
is Tank Dell gonna have a curfew this season?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a problem saying this, but like, if you had like a white player on the team that got shot at a mall, like, would you ask them if they regret going to a mall?
I mean,
like, I'm just being honest.
The mall is
like,
terrible, but
the mall is the
I'd be
worst
like,
place on the earth.
Why'd you go to Greenspoint Mall? That's my
more
question.
like Guns Point.
Well, let's use Galleria then as an example.
Then I'd be like, that's really close to where I work. Yeah, no, I mean, it was a party when he went back home to hang out with friends and family.
Yeah,
like,
don't hang out with your friends.
Cut them off.
Don't hang out with anybody.
Cut them off.
They're dangerous. You could
Stay
get COVID
inside.
from them, or they'll shoot you.
Just go to foreign countries where like good things happen.
Yeah,
You see
hang out
this
with
show.
Michael Parsons.
That's just a great idea too. Like, can't wait to hear those questions that he's gonna ask about CJ Stroud going to China. Now I'm like anticipating it. Now I can't wait.
Should I go there and ask like Tucker Carlson?
because it'll blow up in your face.
I know that's the problem.
I don't want that.
People don't understand the character.
But now, I'm like anticipating. Like I'm like gonna be like going to media events to see when I can get Will and CJ in the room together and just to see what question is asked.
CJ Stroud, how does it feel to betray the children of America? What is happening? What is going on? Why do you worship Winnie the Pooh as your Lord and Savior?
All right, Warren Moon.
Don't call him that, by the way.
Warren Moon is.
Won't let you on TikTok.